Hey, what's up everyone? JT here. Welcome to Pineapple Money, where I talk about stock market news and investing for the long-term portfolio. I just want to make a quick market update today since today is October 29th, which is the day that big tech earnings report finally happened and basically all the big FANG stocks all finished their reports for quarter three. And I want to take a look at how they did after hours. But of course, looking at the broader market today, looks like it is up compared to the last week, which has been trading kind of weirdly up and down and sideways, as you can tell right here. But let's first take a look. The first stock I want to take a look is Facebook. So Facebook, of course, one of the biggest social media platforms. They have a market cap of $800 billion, and after hours looks like they are down about 2.6% after hours, and possibly looks like a decline of users in US and Canada. Next stock is Google, one of the biggest search engines out there, of course. Looks like they are sitting about a market cap of $1.06 trillion, and after hours they are up about 6% up the after hours. Wow, that's a pretty big jump for a big company like this. I believe from what I saw in the news that they were up because of YouTube revenue, so that's a great thing to hear. Next stock is Amazon. Amazon sitting about a market cap of $1.6 trillion. And looks like after hours they are down about 1.8%. Nothing too drastic. I think this is actually within range of what the market maker thought it would be, but nothing too drastic, but still a little down. Netflix is sitting about a $222 billion company, and after hours they are up, barely up, I think 0.6% up. And I did see in the news that it looks like they are raising prices on their monthly plans, so that's a good thing for stock investors, of course, but of course bad for people who use Netflix like maybe you and I. And lastly, I do want to talk about Apple. Apple is, of course, I see in the title, is what I really want to talk about and go into depth today. But Apple is sitting about a $2 trillion company. I'm sure it's less since they dropped after hours about 4%, as you can see right here. And we can talk about why they dropped in as well. But from what we can tell right here, it looks like it was because of their iPhone declines in sales from the past quarter. But in this video, I do want to talk about Apple specifically, and I want to go into depth. So in this video, I want to review Apple's stock chart and what Wall Street analysts were expecting from their earnings and what actually happened in their earnings report. And of course, I want to talk about my predictions in the upcoming quarters from Apple after this earnings report. And if you do remember, I did make a video a couple days ago predicting Apple's movement, and I was right. They did drop off after their earnings and did have a slight run up before then, but it seems like after hours they did drop off with a 4% and made a quick sale. And I'm sure if people weren't investing in Apple long term, like you and I maybe, or mostly me, I'm talking to myself right now, but I did pick up some shares since it was on sale for me. But before I do get into juicy stuff, if you do find anything interesting in this video, please don't forget to hit that like button down below and subscribe for more content. I would super appreciate that. And also let me know down in the comments if you picked up some shares of Apple. I just want to remind you also, whoever's tempted, I'm not a financial advisor of any kind, so please do your own due diligence before investing. Thank you so much. Let's get on with it. So as we can tell, we are looking at Apple's stock specifically, but I do want to mention that the broader market this whole entire week was trading like a roller coaster, going up and down with the constant news of lockdowns and increase of cases. But looking at Apple stock completely, we can see in the past week, Apple was following the pretty much overall market, and now since they had the earnings, they did report, and as you can see, they did drop of about 4% downwards. And as you can see, where this 4% downwards did hit about a 108, 107 mark right here, which I did draw a support line from a previous support back all the way in September 23rd, I believe, late September-ish, right here, as you can see, right here. So I do see two support lines right now, currently at the 107, 108 mark, and also one at the 105 mark. And I do see two resistance lines, one at the 112, as well as one at the 116 mark. So right now, I think it's kind of too early to predict what will happen to Apple's stock because it looks like they just had their earnings. And in the short term, I think it's kind of difficult because they can still continue to trend downwards or possibly just rebound back up because maybe realize people thought the news was just over exaggerated. So we kind of just have to wait into the next week to see what happens. But I do really want to emphasize that, remember, every reaction is an overreaction. And to news, there are two parts to it. First, is the reaction to the news, which we had right here. Of course, and investors didn't take the news very well. And afterwards, there's the digestion, which is once investors had the chance to think about it, maybe they realize it's an overreaction, or maybe they realize actually this is worse than it seems. So from there, we can kind of determine what the trend Apple will be like in the short term and maybe in the midterm as well. Now, let's get into the meat of this video. Let's take a look at Apple's actual earnings and the many articles reporting on what happened. Let's take a look at the numbers real quick. So Apple reported an EPS of 0.73 cents, a revenue of $64.69 billion, which is a 1% year-over-year increase, and they did beat expectations by 1.36 billion. iPhone of 26.44 billion, which is actually lower than the expected, which is 27.73 billion right here. Mac reported 9.03 billion, higher than 7.93 expected. iPad is a 6.79, increased expected of 6.14. Wearables, homes, and accessories, of course, beat 7.8, and services a beat as well of $14.5 billion. So I'm currently on Seeking Alpha page, but it's actually just a quick summary to see what their numbers are. Let's take a look into the actual report and what they gave us right here. So into Apple's actual earnings, if you do want this report, I can put a link for it in the description down below. So go ahead and take a look if you want to see it for yourself. Let's take a look right here. So going into the products and sales first, as you can see, products is a little bit lower from from last year's. The services is a big increase from last year. That's a good thing to see. And overall net sales is increased, but not too much, as you can see right here. And another thing I really want to go into is their net sales by category. So as you can tell right here, iPhones is a little lower than previous years. iPhones and then Macs are increased. iPads also increased from previous years. Wearables are increased, and of course services are greatly increased from the previous years, which shows in net sales increase as well. But the biggest thing that I can see right here is that looking at the net sales by segment and country, you can see Americas is higher, but barely. Europe is a little higher as well, but Greater China is lower than previous years by a pretty considerable amount. And Japan is higher, as well as the rest of Asia Pacific is higher as well. So out of this, the numbers that stand out is, in fact, that the China sales are a little bit lower from previous years. And I would say in general, when you look at these reports, Apple looks like they did beat most of, if anything, all expectations, except for the iPhone sales, and they were up year over year. So the things that were negative for Apple were, in fact, the expected iPhone sales were lower than expected, and the reduction of their sales in China, as you can see right here. On paper, I would say Apple actually looks pretty strong and healthy, but what the heck? Why did they drop still 4% in after hours? Well, I think the biggest reason for that is from Tim Cook's statement right here. So Tim Cook, CEO of Apple, did say, if you look at the case count, the case counts, of course, he's applying to the illness, are climbing in the Western Europe, they're climbing in the US, and so there's still a sufficient level of uncertainty out there. We don't believe that that's an environment to guide into. So from this statement right here, I'm sure he's saying that he cannot give guidance towards the future. And I would think that's the biggest reason why the sales are actually, the stock is actually down after hours. So what I'm actually inferring from what he said here is that he can't give guidance because of said illness, and of course, which Tim Cook is being conservative right here, and this is the literal sense that you can take out of this. But also, I think Tim Cook, from maybe what investors are thinking, is inferring that even after the new hyped up 5G iPhone 12, which is probably not even in the report, but that future guidance cannot be expected. So I believe this is actually a main interpretation that investors probably had, and probably which led to the stock sell-off. But remember what I said earlier? Every reaction is an overreaction. The news is processed into two parts: the initial reaction to said news, and then the digestion. So we are still in phase 1, so we still need some more context from phase 2 to see where the stock actually goes towards. I do want to say that I am completely bullish on Apple, and Apple is actually one of my biggest holdings, and I would consider my safest holdings. I believe in the upcoming quarters, like in 2021 after the holidays, that the true sale of iPhone 12 will become more apparent and will completely beat expectations in the next upcoming quarters. This hype iPhone 12 is actually pretty crazy since there are so many ads running for this phone. I'm going to say even in China, when the pre-order dates got released, global pre-orders for iPhone 12 were at least twice as high as in the first 24 hours compared to the iPhone 11 of last year. And you can see strong demand in China possibly. And I would say another report was that there's actually news that somehow lower air quality is actually happening in some Chinese cities, which can point to possibly an iPhone 12 production surge. Don't know how accurate this is, but it's kind of to see what happens with this. But like I said, possible an increase of the iPhone demand, especially the iPhone 12. So overall, as an investor, should you be worried about the news from Apple? No. I think in the long term, they will soar right back up to right where they had all-time highs. And right now, if anything, is a buying opportunity to pick up some more shares. And in the upcoming quarter, if there's no political news or anything changes drastically in the broader market, I believe Apple should be back to the all-time highs, which is around 130 right before or right after the stock split actually. And once we get those financial numbers from the iPhone 12 in the next quarter, I think it'll be a big green day for Apple. Alright, so this kind of wraps up my video on Apple. If you did find anything interesting in this video, please don't forget to hit that like button down below and let me know down in the comments what your plans are for Apple. Thank you for watching. Peace.